"Without me, you're nothing," my boss said, smiling as he clasped a Rolex on my wrist under the VIP strobes. People cheered, phones up, ice clinking in shakers, while the DJ kicked the bass. I laughed because my face had to. Inside, it felt like a leash. And that's when I knew. And I'm 26, a hostess at a high-end club in Miami. I live with a roommate in Little Havana, work nights, and stack tips to pay for UX design courses at Miami-Dade College. My uniform is a black blazer and a badge. My job is names, smiles, and seating the people who speak like the room belongs to them. The tequila smell rides the air the second the doors open, and the neon washes everyone clean. I tell myself I'm just passing through. It only got worse from there. He's in his early 40s, the kind of owner who remembers every regular's favorite table and forgets your schedule when it helps him. He started with, "You've got potential." Then, "You're different from the others." Then, "I know what's best for your career." The first time he said, "It's for your own good." I felt the metal gate slide shut somewhere behind me. That was the moment I paused. NNTHE, Night of the Watch, was a private party for a crypto group. Big spenders, big noise. The bar sounded like wind chimes made of glass and cash. He waved me over and lifted the box like it was a joke for the room, not a message for me. When the cold metal hit my skin, it made my stomach flip. Cameras popped. My badge bumped the watch face, and I saw my own reflection. Tiny, trapped inside a circle. I should have said no right there. And I told myself it was a comped gift for team morale. I told myself returning it in the moment would create a scene. I told myself it was harmless because it happened in public. Then he leaned in, voice just for me. "Relax, this is nothing yet." The word "yet" sat on my wrist like extra weight. I swallowed and kept smiling. And that's when a quiet fear set in. On my break, I stood by the service hallway where the AC blasts like a freezer. My phone buzzed with group chat pings from hosts and bartenders. "Congrats on the promotion," one message joked, and 3 eye emojis followed. Another said, "VIP table 4 asked if you're special staff now." I could hear the blender scream from the bar, and the bartender laughed too loud. It felt like the walls had ears. I pretended I didn't see the messages. It only got messier after that. His phrases got bolder as the night went on. "Wear it. Show them who I value," he told me. When I hesitated, he chuckled. "You're too sensitive," he said, like it was a diagnosis. He added the classic line, quiet enough to sound safe, sharp enough to cut, "No one will believe you." My throat went dry. I could taste lime and metal. That was the moment I knew I wasn't imagining the power play. I tried to normalize it by thinking of it as workplace politics, a kind of boss romance rumor machine I could ignore until it ran out of batteries. But the rumors don't run out, they reload. 2 regulars called me Rolex girl when I seated them and asked if the watch came with a raise. I smiled the way service workers smile when there's no safe answer. Sweat stuck my blazer to my shoulder blades. I told myself to count to 3 and breathe. This was not the fantasy version of forbidden love drama. It was a trap with good lighting. I kept the count going. NNTHE security guy Dante clocked the shift. He's the one who sees everything because that's his job. Doors, cameras, who touches what and when. He stopped near the podium as I checked the waitlist and asked, "You good?" without moving his face. I said, "I'm fine," because that's what you say in a room where the wrong word gets recycled as gossip. He nodded once and tapped the radio on his shoulder. A promise, or just habit. Either way, I felt less alone for 5 seconds. And then the 5 seconds were gone. And back on the floor, my boss did the rounds, hand on shoulders, kiss kiss, congratulations about deals I didn't understand. When he reached me, he brushed a strand of hair behind my ear like a movie still. I stepped back so it missed, which made his eyes harden for a blink. "Don't make this complicated," he said. "This helps you." The watch felt heavy, warm from my skin, the bezel clicking softly when I moved. I understood the math. Accept the story or become the story. And that's when the knot formed. N and I went home at 3 a.m., ears still ringing, blazer smelling like citrus and sweat. I put the Rolex on my kitchen counter next to my apartment key and my badge. 3 small symbols in a row: access, identity, control. The second hand ticked like it had something to say. I filmed a 5-second clip of it for myself, just to remember the date. No filters, just a timestamp and that sound. I didn't post it. Not yet. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I'll decide. It only took one more push. The push came faster than I expected. By the next night, my coworkers weren't whispering behind my back anymore. They were saying it loud enough for me to hear. VIP's princess. One bartender laughed when I walked past. A server tossed a napkin onto the floor like a glove and muttered, "Rolex girl can clean that up herself." It stung, not because I wanted their approval, but because I'd worked hard to be neutral. No drama, no gossip. Just do my job, get my tips, save for school. That was the plan. And now the plan was shredded in neon light. .nn. That's when the public part hit. A table of regulars flagged me down. They pointed to my wrist and asked, "So is this a loyalty bonus, or are you just his favorite?" The way they said favorite made the whole table laugh. The smell of patron and lime mixed with their jokes, and I wanted to vanish. My boss smiled at them across the room, like he was proud of the attention. That was the moment I knew I was being set up as the story, not just in the club but outside it. Later that week, TMZ dropped the bomb. A blurry photo from the VIP zone, me, laughing nervously while he put the Rolex on my wrist. The headline, Miami club boss and his mystery girl. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Group chats, DMs, even an old friend sending me a screenshot like, "Wait, is this you?" I sat on the couch in sweatpants, AC humming, the glow of my phone lighting the room, and all I could think was, I'm nobody. Why am I in TMZ? That was the night my stomach dropped. And then came the wife. A video sent to me through a burner account, her voice shaking with rage. "You ruined everything. You destroyed my family." My phone screen blurred as my hands trembled. The words burned. "You ruined everything." I hadn't even done anything except stand there with a watch on my wrist. And yet here she was, screaming at a stranger in her head. It only got worse after that. And in the club, the whispers became labels. Boss romance. Forbidden affair. People said it like hashtags, like I'd chosen to play this role. The DJ strobe made everything too bright, too loud. I started hiding in the hallway between sets, breathing cold air from the vents, just to reset. I tried to tell myself it was just gossip, just noise. But gossip sticks harder than perfume. And that's when I realized silence was making me guilty. An NY boss noticed my silence too. He cornered me near the staff lockers one night, his cologne sharp and overwhelming. "Why do you look so nervous?" he asked. I muttered something about being tired. He smirked and said, "This is for your benefit. You'll thank me later." He tapped the Rolex and added, "Without me, you're nothing." It was the same phrase again, the one that kept ringing in my head. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just testing boundaries, he was bragging about them. The only person who seemed to notice how bad it was getting was Dante, the security guy. One night after close, when the club smelled like bleach and stale tequila, he handed me his phone. "You should see this," he said quietly. On his screen were screenshots of texts between my boss and another manager. My name was in them. "Got her on a leash," one text said. Rolex was just the start. My throat went dry. It wasn't just in my head. He was actually saying it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't random drama. This was a trap. And I felt sick but also angry. Angry that I had proof now, and still felt powerless. Angry that my coworkers saw me as complicit, not cornered. Angry that the wife blamed me instead of him. Angry that my boss thought texts like that would never see the light of day. I sat in my car after shift, watch still ticking on my wrist, and asked myself, do I keep it and drown in rumors? Or do I hand it back and light a fire? And that's when I made a choice. And I decided the Rolex had to go. Not just off my wrist, but into HR's hands, with Dante's screenshots as backup. It was a risk. I could lose my job, lose my chance to save for school, lose the fragile respect of my team. But if I kept it, I'd lose more. My name, my voice, my chance to say no. It felt like a career-ending decision. But it also felt like the only decision that mattered. And that's when the plan began. I didn't sleep the night I made the decision. The Rolex sat on my counter next to my apartment key and work badge, ticking like a countdown. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his smirk. Every time I opened them, I saw the TMZ headline. I kept thinking, If I walk into HR with this, it's my word against his. But if I don't, I'll always be Rolex girl. And that was the moment I knew hesitation was worse than action. NNTHE next evening. I wore the watch into work, but not like a prize, more like evidence. Every tick against my wrist reminded me I had one last shift to play it cool. I smiled at guests, wrote down reservations, nodded at coworkers who rolled their eyes at me. The smell of salt and tequila clung to my blazer as usual, but I felt different, more focused. I wasn't his favorite anymore. I was the one holding the knife to the rumor. NNH halfway through the night. My phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't TMZ, it was another message from the same burner account. Her voice again, angrier, sharper. "You've ruined his reputation. Everyone knows." My hands shook as I read the transcription. My first instinct was to defend myself, type back, "You've got the wrong person." But I stopped. It didn't matter what I said. She wanted a villain, and I was the easiest target. That was the moment I realized no apology would fix this. NNBY. The end of the shift, my boss came by the host stand. He leaned in close enough for me to smell whiskey on his breath. "Keep smiling," he whispered. "This is all for your future." I flinched. He noticed. His grin widened. "Don't forget who made you," he added, tapping the Rolex like it was his signature. Without missing a beat, I smiled for the guests walking past. Inside, I was counting seconds. This wasn't my future, it was my exit. And that was the moment I knew tomorrow had to be the day. And Dante met me at the side door when we closed. The club was quiet, neon signs switched off, the air filled with the scent of bleach and stale champagne. He handed me a flash drive. "Backups of the texts," he said, "in case they try to spin it." I took it with shaky hands. The metal felt colder than the Rolex. "You didn't have to," I told him. He shrugged. "I don't like bullies." Simple words, but they steadied me. That was when I realized I had an ally, and allies changed the game. NTHE next morning. I walked into HR. My blazer felt heavier than usual, my palms damp from nerves. The office smelled like printer ink and burnt coffee, worlds away from the neon haze of the club. I placed the Rolex on the desk first. The tick filled the silence. Then I slid the flash drive across. "This belongs in a file, not on my wrist," I said. My voice shook, but I kept going. "These texts prove what he's doing." The HR representative blinked, stunned. She adjusted her glasses and said, "You realize this could escalate?" I nodded. "It already has." That was the moment I knew I couldn't take it back. NNFOR, a few days. It was quiet. Too quiet. My boss didn't speak to me. Didn't even look at me. Rumors around the club didn't stop, but they shifted. Why is he ignoring her? Why did she stop wearing the watch? It felt like holding my breath underwater. Every shift, I waited for the explosion. I told myself, either he takes me down, or I drag him with me. It only got heavier from there. Then came the meeting. They called him into HR mid-shift. Everyone saw. He walked past the bar, jaw tight, eyes forward, staff whispering like wildfire. The DJ dropped the bass right as the door closed behind him, and it felt like the club itself exhaled. I pretended to keep seating guests, but my heart pounded in my ears. That was the moment I knew. The story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone watching. And I don't know what they said in that room. But when he walked out, he didn't look at me. He didn't smile. He didn't touch anyone's shoulder. He just grabbed his jacket and left. The silence was louder than any music. My coworkers exchanged glances. No one said a word, but the shift in the air was undeniable. That was when I realized the power wasn't his anymore. It was mine, at least for now. The silence didn't last. By the next weekend, the whispers had a new target, and it wasn't just me anymore. Guests were asking staff what happened to the big boss. Regulars leaned on the bar and joked, "Where's the Rolex donor tonight?" My coworkers looked at me differently now, not like I was guilty, but like I was dangerous. That was the moment I knew the narrative had shifted. NNHE tried to fight back, of course. A memo went out to all staff about quote, professional boundaries and appropriate workplace conduct. No names, no blame. But everyone read between the lines. Everyone knew. The DJ even joked during a smoke break. Is this HR drama or a Netflix pilot? My stomach flipped, but this time not from fear. Because the power balance was changing. It only got more obvious after that. NNHI's wife? She didn't stay quiet either. TMZ followed up their first post with a new one, this time quoting her. "He humiliated me in front of the whole world," she said, and she played along. My phone buzzed nonstop with links. A friend from college texted, "You're trending for all the wrong reasons." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. This was the kind of exposure people dream about, just not like this. And that's when I realized I couldn't hide anymore. My silence was already public. NNHR pulled me in again. The office felt colder this time, the AC humming like static. "We're investigating," the representative said, tapping a pen against her notes. "We need to know if you're safe to keep working here." I blinked at the phrase, "safe to keep working here," like I was a liability, not a person. I answered honestly, "I didn't ask for any of this. I just want to do my job." The pen stopped tapping. She nodded, but her eyes said, "We'll see." That was the moment I knew HR wasn't my savior. They were the cleanup crew. In back at the club, the atmosphere changed. My coworkers stopped calling me Rolex girl. They started watching him. Bartenders whispered when he passed. Hosts lowered their voices mid-sentence. For the first time in months, I wasn't the punchline. He was. That shift in the air? That was survival. And I clung to it. How I me, but the pressure wasn't over. One night, he cornered me again, this time in the dim service hallway. His voice low, his breath sharp with whiskey. "You think you won?" he hissed. "You think HR cares? They'll protect me before they protect you. Without me, this place collapses." His eyes burned, waiting for me to flinch. But I didn't. My pulse was racing, but I stared right back. "Then maybe it should collapse," I said. My voice was steady. That was the moment I realized I wasn't scared of him anymore. NNTHE fallout hit faster than I expected. TMZ posted again. "Club boss under investigation after Rolex scandal." My name wasn't mentioned this time, just his. The relief felt like stepping into fresh air after weeks in a smoky room. But the comments online were brutal. People speculated, invented stories, labeled me anyway. She must have been in on it. Classic boss romance, forbidden love gone wrong. It was surreal reading strangers argue about my life like it was a soap opera. That was when I realized I'd lost control of the story, but he had lost more. Dante caught me outside after a shift. The night air was heavy with humidity, the smell of fried food drifting from a cart across the street. "You did the right thing," he said. I laughed, bitter. "Feels like the right thing comes with a target on my back." He shrugged. "Better a target than a leash." Simple words, but they landed. That was the moment I knew I'd chosen the harder road, but also the cleaner one. NNBY. The end of the month, he stopped showing up. Management said nothing. Staff filled the silence with guesses. Divorce, settlement, maybe even a buyout. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. What mattered was the Rolex was gone, and so was his grip on me. For the first time, I could walk the floor without flinching at whispers. That was my small victory, and I held on to it. And still, the echo remains. Every time I hear the tick of a watch or see a guest raise a glass with that same fake smile, I feel the weight of that night. The night the gift wasn't a gift, but a chain. And that's when I realized. Some cages shine the brightest. The trick is walking out anyway. It's strange, the way silence feels after chaos. The club eventually settled into a new rhythm. Music thumped, lights flashed, ice cracked in shakers. It was the same on the surface. But under it all, something had shifted. People whispered about new owners, new management. His name became taboo, spoken only in half-jokes. "Remember the Rolex era?" a bartender said one night, shaking his head. The room laughed nervously. That was the moment I realized his legend was already fading. NNFOR me, though the echo stayed louder. The watch might have been gone, but its tick still lived in my head. I'd walk past the VIP zone and see ghosts of that night. The neon glow on metal, the forced smile on my face, the phones flashing. I'd smell tequila and feel the weight on my wrist again. Sometimes I'd wake at 3 a.m. with the sound of his wife's voice replaying in my ears. "You ruined everything." That sentence followed me like a shadow. It only got heavier at night. Then still, I kept moving. I paid for another semester of design classes. I focused on saving, on stacking shifts, on reminding myself this was temporary. I told myself, you're not a character in his scandal, you're a person with your own story. Easier said than done, but it helped. That was the moment I realized I had to rebuild my identity before someone else wrote it for me. And online, the story lived longer than I wanted. TikToks, Twitter threads, even podcasts dissecting forbidden workplace romance, like it was entertainment. My face blurred, my name rarely used, but I knew it was me. The comments stung, she played along. Classic forbidden love drama. Boss romance gone sour. They didn't know me, but they were sure they did. I learned quickly not to read past the headlines. That was when I realized the internet always needs a villain, and I wasn't going to volunteer anymore. At the club, I noticed something surprising. Respect. My coworkers, the same people who once mocked me, started backing me up. A server who used to call me princess defended me when a guest made a snide joke. "We don't talk about that anymore," she said firmly. Another host, who had ignored me for weeks, asked if I wanted to grab food after a shift. Small gestures, but they mattered. They told me the story had flipped. And that was the moment I realized survival earns you allies. Even if late NNHR never gave me the details of what happened to him. Confidential, they said, but I didn't need them. I saw the empty office, the absence of his name on schedules. He wasn't just gone from the club, he was erased from it. It was like watching a ghost fade from a photograph. The cage was gone, but the mark stayed. Still, that absence was its own form of justice. It only made me breathe easier after that. One night, closing shift, I lingered by the bar after everyone left. The neon signs were off, the club silent except for the hum of the fridge. I pulled my badge off and set it on the counter next to my apartment key. 2 symbols of where I was and where I lived. I thought about the missing third symbol, the Rolex. I didn't regret giving it back, not even a little. Because that watch was never mine. It was his leash disguised as luxury. That was the moment I knew. Sometimes giving something up is the only way to keep yourself. Now, weeks later, I walk to class in daylight, not just home in darkness. I still work nights, but the weight feels lighter. The Rolex scandal turned into someone else's headline, not mine. He lost his power. His wife got her photo in TMZ. I got my silence back. That was enough. NNBUT, the question lingers. Every time I pass a jewelry store window, every time I see a shiny display under bright lights, I think back. Would I have had the strength if the gift had been even bigger? A car, a trip, a check? Would I have broken free or stayed trapped in gold? NNSO. Tell me honestly, would you keep the Rolex and risk drowning in gossip? Or would you give it back and set fire to the story?